Hey, it's Derek with Frostline Studios. I'm here in Studio A, joined by Hannah from our film department, and we are going to do a quick mix look at Taylor Vidic's song, Being Free, from her new album that just came out. This song was a ton of fun to record and mix. We tracked everything here. It was about a 12-piece band. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to turn that big live band recording into a polished jazz pop performance and mix. Yeah, so let's dig in. Hannah, thanks for hanging out.
I'm actually really excited for this because, as Derek said, I'm part of the film department at Frostline Studios, and while I enjoy music and I watch Derek produce a lot of music and mix a lot of it, I really don't know much about the process, so I am really excited to learn more, and hopefully I can get you to say things that make sense to me.
Fingers crossed. So the goal with this song and most of the songs on the jazz half of this record was to be a somewhat, I would say, kind of modern hi-fi jazz pop recording. When you're doing your tracking and your recording, the more you know what your end result is going to sound like, the more decisions that you can make both stylistically and just technically with how you record things, how you mic things, how you process them to get them as close as possible to the end result from the start.
How does recording everyone live influence the mix stage of the process?
Recording everyone live, it makes me feel like there's a live concert going on. And so my goal is to, in the mix, recreate that excitement that you feel in the room when everyone's playing. Just the energy is so great, especially when you have players of this caliber. It can be hard to focus on any one specific element because it's just all so amazing and immersive. So the listener experience that I want to translate is I want the listener to feel like they are where I was sitting and just having the best day hearing these amazing players. That can be fairly difficult to have translate because after that moment is gone and everyone's left and you're listening back to everything, then you start to there's a little squeak here. There's an artifact here. There's a little pitch drift here. That in the moment, because you're in this kind of community environment and experience with everyone, it doesn't really jump out at you. But then when you're removed from that, it becomes sterile all of a sudden. How do we get back there? Not just for myself in this room, but for the listener in whatever they're listening on headphones, their car or whatever. So to bring out what was recorded, but bring out the balance and the imbalance as well, because to make emotions come across and make big dynamic movements, there is need for imbalance. You want something to jump out at you. You want the vocals or whatever it is to have a big moment. And even though it might not feel like it's perfectly blended with everything else, that's not the goal. The goal is to elicit an emotional response and convey the emotion of the songwriter.
All right, take us into the song. That's very well said.
Yeah, so one of the most important parts that I wanted to have from the rhythm section that was also, I knew was going to be very challenging with having everyone in the same room, is having clear low end and punchy low end, which is not always a trademark of a lot of jazz recordings, especially when you get into the subfrequencies.
Why is that?
Because a lot of times they're recorded like a whole band on the stage. When there's all these open mics picking up bleed from other instruments on stage, bigger space means longer reflection times and larger room sound. And usually the first place on your frequency spectrum that gets muddy is your low end, when you have all those things going at once, because it's usually the spot where everything has some sort of information. The bass, the kick drum, the guitar amps, they all have inherently some sort of rumble that when they start to pile up, they kind of start to smear the low end and make it kind of cloudy and ambiguous instead of having a punchy, concise note and clarity from the bass or the kick drum. A few things that you can do with that is, one, the mic positioning and really listening to small adjustments on where the microphone is placed, how it changes the overall tone, not of the instrument, but also of everything else that's getting picked up in the room. I try to limit how much compression I'm using on the bass, because when you compress something, just generally speaking, you are taking you're pulling the peaks down of the loud moments, but you're also generally kind of bringing up all the softer moments too. So if there's all this bleed happening in those quieter moments, you're raising the volume on those things as well. So as much consistency as we can get out of the player is one of the things that's going to help you out a ton. And so in this case, we had a really, really awesome upright player, Chaz. You can see here, I did a little bit of compression on the console, not much, probably maybe 1 to 2 dB of gain reduction. What you can see is the waveform is smaller here. He's playing quieter, and then it gets larger here, more dynamic. Peaks are a little larger, but overall, there's not crazy big jumps around. It stays consistent, and it's just a gradual build. The other thing I think is pretty important is having sidechain compression on your bass from your kick drum. So every time the kick drum hits, because they live in a similar frequency range, this compressor then pulls the bass out of the way. So let's look at that real quick. So I'm going to solo the kick and the bass. And this is the sidechain compressor. So you can see here the trigger for that bass for this compressor is not the bass's peaks, it's the kick drum hitting that. And that's what's making this duck out of the way. So it's making room for there to be a more cohesive and even low end spread between the instruments. And you can have them both louder in the mix without getting muddy and stepping all over each other.
Whoa.
I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. One thing that is pretty important to my workflow here is how I route everything and how I group everything together as well. So I use folders basically as bus groups. So I've got a routing folder for drums, routing folder for bass, electric guitar, keys, and the brass section. So within each folder, we'll open vocals back up. You've got the audio track, and then I've got all my aux effect sends, and then I can blend in how much I want of that effect. So that's all to say that, and all of those elements are getting then summed together into that vocal group. And then I usually have some EQ and some compression on that group as a whole that then kind of glues it together. And then the final piece in my routing that's really important to my workflow is this rear bus. And I got this...
The caboose, if you will.
Yes. Yes. I got this from Michael Brower's mixing techniques. And what he does is he takes everything except for the drums and sends that into a aux channel with a really, really heavy compression, fast compressor with a really high ratio. The reason that he doesn't send the drums into this compressor is because a compressor will pick up whatever has either the sharpest transients or is the kind of the loudest thing hitting that compressor. So in pretty much any mix, the drums are going to be what has the pointiest attack. So the compressor is going to be triggered off of those drums, and it's then not really going to do as much for everything else. So when you eliminate the drums from that equation, then you can really kind of fine tune how you have that really heavy compression sculpting everything else. And in the same way that I was talking about earlier, where with compression, your floor kind of gets brought up as well as the peaks getting brought down. A lot of the interesting harmonic frequencies that are going on and saturation and all that is in some of those quieter elements. And so those things are getting brought up without the drums taking over how the compressor is reacting. And you end up with this wider feeling of a mix. So we can go ahead and actually play some. Let's jump in here. I'm going to mute the rear bus.
The caboose.
This ain't ever what I wanted.
Sounds great. And then I'm going to unmute this.
Ain't ever where I thought that I would be.
Mute it again.
I'm so far from where I started.
It's so subtle.
Yeah, it's just and again, it's fairly low in the mix, that rear bus where it's blended in with everything else, but it just very slightly, I feel like it widens everything and pushes the drums back a little bit, which I like. I like drums, but I don't always want them, especially in a song like this. I don't want them to be like as close to the listener's kind of face in a way as the vocals. I want the vocals to be the center piece. So yeah, that is one of my favorite things. Yes. So and I'll mute it.
This ain't ever where I thought that I would be.
Yeah, I almost can't tell the difference. My ears are not as trained as yours, and I'm sure there's going to be audience members watching this going, it sounds the same. But I can tell that it feels just a little bigger.
Mm-hmm. And it also, like, what I like about it is it kind of feels more relaxed in a way too, because it feels like, everything kind of has more space to breathe. So yeah. Another thing that I do here, similar to how I wanted the drums kind of pushed out a little bit, I wanted the horns pushed out a little bit. I find that on my group here works great with brass, also works great with bass too if you're trying to push bass out, is to use a little bit of plate reverb. Basically as short of a reverb time as you can, pull down the highs, and then have here, I think I've set it to like a 30% mix, and that just very slightly pushes the horns. Oh yeah. So this has reverb and delay going on here, but let's just take off this. And put it back on. And now, the other thing that we can do that kind of accentuate what it's doing is I'll bring up the wet mix. So now that's really exaggerated. Like they feel distant.
Yeah, they feel far.
Yeah, so now I just want a touch of that. So I bring that back to about 30%. So now let's listen to that within the mix. We'll have it on. And let's take it off. Just go a little closer. Yep.
Taylor does a great, she had everybody bringing in lamps.
Yeah.
And she brought her duck phone, and she really curated a vibe for the recording, and the energy that was in this space was pretty incredible. So it makes so much sense that you would want to try and keep that essence of that.
It really helps so much when the songwriter and the artist has a clear vision of what they want to accomplish and how they want it to feel as they're getting there as well. There's so much more freedom to explore sonic choices and all that when you have those guidelines and those guardrails in place. So I love it when clients come in and have that clear, like, okay, this is what we're going to go for. This is our clear end result, and let's enjoy getting there.
Do you have anything else to play, or should we listen to some of the song?
We've talked very little about the vocals.
Yeah, talk about the vocals.
Yeah, I mean, it's really
easy because Taylor's really great.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to, is when the source is great, a lot of work is made easier. So on the vocal channel strip, we've got the RX mouth declick, just taking care of some mouth noises that happen. And we've got a de-esser here, focusing on the 10K range, like the really high frequency S sounds. And then we've got an EQ here, doing a little bit of low mid cleanup and a little bit of upper mid boost, just very slight. And then we've got another de-esser. I like to stack de-essers. This one is more in the 5K range. They both are fairly low percentage mix-wise. And then finally, we've got a LA2A compressor. And this was recorded with EQ and compression on the console. Also, I had our 1176 as an insert on the console channel strip. That's why you're not seeing a ton of compression going on here, is because I tried to take care of that on the way in a not super heavy-handed way. And then on my group, I've got Fairchild as well. All right, so let's take a look at some of these vocals. Let's solo.
This ain't ever what I
On a chorus
wanted.
here.
This ain't ever where I thought that I would be. I'm so far from where I
What are the
started.
effects?
It ain't always
Bring 'em back in.
easy being
So
free.
I wanted a bit more space on this than I might do regularly. I generally like tighter vocal delays and reverbs and stuff, but the vocals sounded so good, you want them to take up a lot of space, kind of just like a dramatic statement. So let's listen a little more. Again, these were recorded in the live room. We opted for that instead of the booth for doing the vocal overdubs. It felt for Taylor more comfortable, more space to kind of stretch out and not feel as confined as in the vocal booth. And that also lends to like, okay, we're in the bigger room, so we're going to use some bigger effects.
I'm often known to smell the flowers.
Another thing that's really important for me with that is, with a great sounding mic and vocalist, to take away and really add as little as possible on EQ. Like figure out the right mic choice for the vocal to where you can let it be as natural as possible. That's where the magic is like in the performer.
Some of those adjustments that you're making are so subtle that I can almost not tell the difference. Even if the adjustment is that subtle, how do you know that it's adding or...
Time doing it. A couple of things. One is like especially when there's this much going on, all those little adjustments make a really big difference down the road. And those little adjustments are what helps things, even though it might all sound good in here. This is a like very almost too perfect listening environment. But then when you get to your car with a blown out right side speaker, or you're just listening on your phone speakers without headphones, all these little adjustments sum together to make this translate as well as possible on as wide of a range of listening surfaces as possible. I try not to think about it like, oh, I'm not really doing that much. It's not going to be that important. It's like, how subtle can I be, but still have the biggest effect on the end result? And also having really great gear that it's recorded through and really amazing players means that I'm having to do less
Yeah.
And I would be doing them a disservice if I was making huge cutting swipes and all that.
Right.
So, because they know what they want it to sound like, and that's how they're delivering their performance. So I'm just trying to recreate that for everyone who wasn't in the room.
It's really impressive the way you can do that.
It takes a lot of time. One thing that is really important to do is to consistently remind yourself of your frame of reference and to zoom out and get larger picture perspective.
Yep.
Especially on vocals, when I'm doing like a bunch of really fine detail work on a vocal, I'll be working on a verse, and then every couple minutes I like to, okay, let's take a step back. We're going to start back at the start of the song,
context.
and we're going to listen through and remind ourselves of how this is floating in with everything else.
Yep. I do that with color grading.
Nice. And do you, as you're working, constantly be going back to the reference material?
Yeah, I love when I actually have reference material because I'm not trying to recreate the look. I'm using it as inspiration to guide me. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have a base to start with. So yeah, definitely. I was really impressed with the amount of people that you were able to record at one time, and they're all making sound in the same room. And walk me through some of those challenges.
The end result is the priority. So figuring out what are the pluses and minuses of full band tracking versus splitting up and doing it one layer at a time, and what your constraints are. So like for this recording, we only had a weekend where everyone was here in the studio, and we had, I think, 6 songs to get through. So that's not really enough time to record everyone separately. And the other aspect is Taylor wanted these arrangements to move and breathe. And so we opted for not recording to click. So that means, again, everyone's got to record together for the most part, at least the rhythm section. And so figuring out okay, those are our kind of limitations. Those are our guardrails. Now, how can we work best within that? And that's choosing the right microphones, because there's going to be bleed regardless. So knowing that there's going to be bleed, figure out a way to, in a sense, lean into that and choose microphones that their polar pattern, their off-axis rejection is as pleasing as possible, because some mics, they might be really focused in where they pick up sound from, but the little bit of bleed that comes in sounds really weird and tinny or distorted. And so maybe I pick a mic that doesn't have quite as laser focus of a pickup pattern, but I know that the off-axis stuff that it does allow to creep in is a bit more pleasant sounding. So figuring out like what cards you have dealt and lean into them. And in this case, it also comes down to the processing. Like, one of the things that I love about recording a larger band all together is that there's a kind of magic chemistry that happens when people are all playing music together that is really, really hard to replicate when you're doing one layer at a time. Because it's this community effect of everyone's feeding off each other and actively in the moment listening. That's really difficult to replicate. And so for this, I wanted it to have the best of both worlds, the best of the feel and the energy of everyone together, and as much as possible, the clarity that you would get if everyone was tracking separately. At the same time, what I'm doing here on the console, especially my processing in the moment, I want to actually lean into that and trust my gut and make decisions in the moment that are being printed to the tracks. So my EQs, compression, and all that is on the console getting printed to these tracks, because I'm kind of, in a way, seeing myself as a part of the performance and trying to tap in to the same energy and wavelength that everyone else is on. And so it comes back to like knowing your end result and making decisions in the moment that you know are going to get you closer to that. And that also comes with clear communication with everyone that you're working with, because if you have a different end goal in mind than the actual songwriter and arrangers, that's going to be a problem. And down the road, you're going to be like stuck with, okay, I painted myself into a corner and it's not the corner that everyone else had in mind for this song. Well, yeah, let's look at, we'll just kind of go through the session. I'll loop a chorus, we'll listen through it, and then I'll start soloing stuff.
This ain't ever what I wanted. This ain't ever where I thought that I
The drums. So I've
It's
got,
actually so weird because this was the song that I was filming
Oh,
during.
nice.
And so I can actually like remember what it was like. And when you solo an instrument, it's like feels wrong almost.
yeah, it's
Because
the,
it's like that didn't happen like that.
yeah. And it's also like, that's very accurate, because it's, even though we're soloing stuff here for just to talk about it, I try to stay away from soloing stuff when I'm deep in the mix, because I don't want really perspective on what this sounds like on its own, because it's not going to live on its own. It's
Yeah,
part of,
it never was on its own.
this is the whole song is the instrument. But we're soloing just to kind of give examples, because you do, as you're figuring out how you like to process things, it is important to see how individual things are affected.
It's also just like mind-blowing how specific that mic is.
Yeah, well, and this is what, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 mics.
Oh my god, yeah,
Yeah.
right, it's like the whole kit.
Yep, so I've got spot mics on hats and ride, mono overhead, and rooms, and yeah, I've obviously got kick, snare top, snare side, toms. And then we've got our effects sends here that are running in parallel. I'm actually not using spring reverb, this effect send at all. I ended up putting it right on the snare channel, which I don't normally do, but it was what I did during tracking. And it sounded great, so why change it? And yeah, it's spring reverb on snare, and then just some parallel compression here on the entire drum group. They're all getting sent to that, drum effects too. And then got some EQ and Fairchild on the whole group as a whole. Let's look at bass. And we kind of talked through this already. This is very little compression going on here. Yeah. Sounds great. Electric guitar. Spring reverb, delay, and again, Brower motion, kind of giving it some swirl, just a little bit of depth.
Such a cozy electric guitar sound. It almost feels like contradictory.
Yeah, it's you want contrast, or else if everything sounds kind of on the, like, either not specifically for this song, but if everything sounds aggressive in a track, then there's nothing for the listener to have a reference off of to be like, okay, this is an aggressive sounding thing, if that makes sense.
Derek, I'm having so much fun.
This is, yeah, so this keys, pretty straightforward. It's a Nord.
I don't remember keys.
We tracked that the day after. Yeah, we ended up doing this separately, just scheduling conflicts. New channel strip, and just a little bit of subtle limiting there. I don't think it even gets engaged really until later on. And again, UAD Fairchild on the group. Got brass. Yeah. Subtle compression. Tried to, again, get the mics sounding how you want them to, or get the instrument sounding how you want it to with the right mic choice and the placement and the room that you put them in and all that. And then everything after that is kind of flavor. And then it's important not to forget to have some change with your automation. It can really add some life, especially to the, like, as the song grows and develops. Having a rise or a fall in your automation can really add to the movement and the energy and the development of the track. So let's listen here where we've got that. There's a rise going here. Biggest moment of the song. And then real quick, on my print send, I'm sending this through the console again and going through our tube core Varimu compressor, and then it's coming back in. So that's doing kind of the final shine on it. Cool.
That's awesome. I'm so excited for this to come out and for everyone to hear it.
Me too.
Yeah.
I love this song. This song was the first song that I mixed. When I started mixing it, everything just kind of fell into place and it set the tone and the sonic world that the whole jazz half of the album was gonna live in. And so, yeah, this was one of those songs that really, it didn't take a lot of work because it was like one of the things you open it up and you know what to start doing. Those are the most fun. Yeah. Cool.
Thanks for walking me through that. That was enlightening.
Thanks for hanging out. We'll hopefully do it again sometime.
We gotta come up with a better ending than that.
Go check out Taylor Dallas Vidic's new album. It's out now everywhere. Hope you really like it. We had an immensely fun time working on it here, and yeah, see ya around.